from the doorway too. From, I think it's, I don't know if I'm saying it right or not, but I hope I am. But thanks for doing this very much. Appreciate your time. Like I said, do really does impress the hell out of me. So really good to be able to do this.
Thank you so much. You know what? You're cutting in and out. So let me grab my headphones because I know when I put my headphones in, it works. So give me just one moment. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
What would the world be like if we had no technical difficulties?
Is that better?
That's totally better.
Cool. All right, and now I lost you.
Okay.
All right. Now you're back. Awesome. So let's talk about the debut record that you released. And kind of, I guess from what I was reading, it's kind of based on your love of Milton's works and things along those lines.
Correct. Sorry.
Cool. Yeah, no, you're fine.
It is based off of two poems that were written in the 1600s by Milton. I just loved those poems. I loved the way he wrote and his idea of what happened. And as I was reading, I'm like, damn, this would be a great album. I'm like, somebody should do it. And lucky for me, I came across two very talented musicians, Jason York and Brian Rush, and they were like, let's do this. And so that's how it was born. Many years ago, though, I will say, I read this book probably 15 years ago, and I've been working on this album since.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So I guess what I'm going to ask is it actually a true band, or is it just kind of a project that you guys put together and now has become a band? Like, I'm really interested on kind of the how it actually became what it is now.
It is a band. So for many years, I quit playing music, I quit singing, and I quit writing. But I still remain very heavy in our music community. I still did my metal show, and I work in radio. So, it's just music was all around me. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're not getting any younger. And if you want to do something, you better do it now. And so one night I met Brian Rush at his, it was his debut for his other project, Diabolic Oath. And it was their first show. And we were talking, and I was telling him that I wanted to do something with heavy synth, and he's an amazing keyboard player. And he's like, well, when and if you're ready, I'll help you out. And so that's how I met Brian. And I met Jason because he has a side project, or actually his primary project is Eternal Valley. And he composed everything for that, the drums, the bass, the guitar, the lyrics. He did everything, even mixed and mastered it. And I met him, and I brought him onto my radio show, and we hit it off really well. And he's like, hey, if you want some help with this project, let me know. And I was like, fuck yeah, I want some help. And so that's how I met those two guys. We do have a drummer, Michael Thompson. He plays for Silver Talon, and he's played with a lot of other projects in the past. We just added him. So in the next album, we will have a live drummer, and definitely a real band. We want to play live. We want to tour. It's just, right now it's a challenging time for everyone. And so we're just waiting for the green light. We're just waiting. Oh, come on.
Oh, I totally understand. So we record in Tampa with my band, and we've had to cancel 4 times now because the studio keeps shutting down and reopening and shutting down. So I completely understand. Yeah, we're gung ho to go in and make a 3rd record right now. We can't do it either. So, but no, very cool. So I saw a picture of the 4 of you, and I was going to ask that question. It says 3, but now I see a picture of 4 separate people. So that's cool. So you have a full live drummer now. That's neat. So I kind of want to ask a little bit about Deliverance as far as a record, because there's a lot of elements that remind me. I'm an old guy too. I'm 48. I'm not a kid. So like,
Hey, I'm 47.
hey, there you go. So yeah, so the 80s and 90s are were our heydays.
Yep.
That's
Especially if
where
you like black metal.
right, exactly. So that's kind of what I was going to talk about is I hear a lot of like first wave black metal even in this, where like I know there's heavy synths and keyboards and it's got that Scandinavian second wave kind of symphonic elements, but I hear a lot of like Bathory, and I hear a lot of even like early Celtic Frost elements that are like in this record, where I don't know if people that are not our age are gonna hear those kind of things, but were those influences as well, as far as like I'm sure like the Dimmu years and the Emperors, that's an understanding, but were those influences as well to this record?
Definitely. Most definitely. My personal taste definitely fall along the lines of both of those bands you just mentioned, in addition to like Dissection and Mayhem, like Dark Throne.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because Jason, he's like, okay, I need you to give me some samples, some ideas, like what kind of sound do you want this album to have? And, um, my vocals are clean, and I do some screams and do some dirties, but majority of them are clean. And I love Sister Can Dance, or Dead Can Dance rather. And, so I gave him some Dead Can Dance and some Dissection and some Bathory and, of course, Emperor. As far as like tone and pace, because I love black metal. And when you look in my record player, you'll find everything from Pest and Urgahol to, Bathory and Dark Throne, their first records, and, country and everything else in between that. But for this specific album, definitely had those influences, most definitely, in addition to like Dissection and, for keys, more of the Dead Can Dance, very melodic.
Cool. Yeah, and that's where I was going to jump to next. So it's kind of funny that you started talking about this. Is I was going to say there's a lot of neoclassical elements in this as well, and Dead Can Dance was one of them. I was very going to say. I even hear elements of a band called Lycia. I don't know if you know who they are or not, but they're kind of like a dark wave kind of death rock band, but they
Okay.
use a lot of neoclassical elements in their music. And they're probably like one of the biggest bands that are on a label called Project Records, out of Tucson, out of here. So, but
Nice.
yeah, so you kind of remind me a mix of kind of that dark wave neoclassical meets black metal, and then I completely hear the dissection. I agree too. But I was trying to stay away from the more obvious elements that are there. So, because like I mean, I can throw the flesh god apocalypses in this world. I could throw the Dimmu gears out there, because that's all kind of in there. But there's also a lot of kind of like the other thing I want to talk about is you seem very passionate tonally to the second wave of Swedish black metal too. Like there's a lot of like I almost want to say like Dark Funeral, or almost like the middle period with like Legion, Marduk kind of vibes going on, where it's not blistering fast. It's the more mid-tempo stuff that people sometimes don't align themselves to truly being black metal. So I kind of wanted to ask you, I kind of wanted to ask you, like, did you do that on purpose? Like, put these different layers in here to make kids that like think that like true cult black metal is the only way to go, that they can see different layers actually can make a really cool black metal record?
I think both Jason and we are so wide as far as our musical influences and what we like, but both of us, him as the primary guitar writer, and myself, I wrote a few of the major guitar pieces in this album, but we both like groove. We both like, especially me. I I love blast beats, but I like them in small amounts, and I like to have just a good pace. I feel like songs are best, they have an ebb and a flow. So they build you up, and then they bring you down a little bit to give you a little bit of a break. Because God, you know, if you're a vocalist and you have to sing through all that stuff, or anybody, actually a guitar player, you know, drummer, you need that small little break to kind of go, okay, we're back into the game again. But I think we both just, you know, we really love groove. And,
Okay.
you know, it was really important to, again, like I said, I love the erga halls and the pests of the world where it's just, you know, raw, cold, and in your face, and the blast beats are killing you. And I do love that. But for this project, because of such a, I feel like those two poems are very, what is the word that I'm looking for? They're very romantic in a sense, and they have a lot of, I feel like, beauty. And so, but it's also, it's probably one of the most horrific stories ever. You know, it's heavy. You know, Lucifer lost his battle, and anybody who has pride in anything that they're trying to achieve, when you lose that, you know, it makes an impact. And you know, I just felt like it needed to have that ugliness, some people might say, but it also needed to have that beauty. I just feel like it was a really beautiful, those poems were amazing. And I love the way that, you know, they spoke in those days. You just don't hear that anymore.
Absolutely. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is a couple of songs on the record that really kind of particularly drew to me. So I kind of want to ask you a little bit about these songs, and if there's a deeper meaning behind them, if there's a particular way they were created. So the first one that, like, the first song that I heard on the record that kind of said, okay, you know what, I want to talk to you about this record. It was Perdition, so track number 4, and it's because there's a lot of elements and layers in that song where it kind of really intrigued me. Being, you know, a musician myself and playing everything from electronic music to doom metal. I love when people layer and put interesting things in. So I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about that song, how it came about. And it almost feels like it's an encompassing of everything that was done on this record. So I kind of want to get your feedback on that.
I just have to give it to Jason. I mean, he's a brilliant guitar player, and he's a brilliant writer, and he is really good at listening to me and taking direction. My writing is very simple. So I will grab Jason's guitar and I'll pick out a few notes that I can play very slowly, because I'm not a guitar player, but I know sounds and tones that I really like. And I'll give those 3 or 4 things to Jason, and he just will blend it and make it fast. And, you know, that dun, 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 you know, it's such a groovy song. And, you know, he just took it and he ran with it.
Nice.
You know, it's a really groovy song, to the point. And, you know, just, I think a lot of people really like that track.
I am definitely one of them, so that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then the other one, it's the last track. It's called the final battle song, and that's just because it makes me feel 16 years old again. Like, it literally just, like, it reminds me of, like, when, so my very, very, very first concert ever as a kid was at L'Amour's in Brooklyn, and I snuck.
Nice.
Yeah, and I
You
snuck.
got to go to L'Amour's? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well,
Lucky.
I got to play L'Amour's too, because that's where I lived. But
Nice.
yeah. But like I said, I snuck out of the house with one of my good friends, and we were 16 years old. I lived in Jersey at the time, and we jumped on the bus, and then we took the subway to L'Amour's in Brooklyn, and it was Slayer, Armored Saint, and Venom, and
Nice.
it was
What a fucking lineup.
Yeah, it was pretty goddamn badass. And like,
And L'Amour's is a pretty small, is it a pretty small venue?
It was the original L'Amour's, which is a little bigger than the second L'Amour's that opened up. It held about 800 to 1,000 people, so it wasn't. But yeah, I mean, Slayer at that time was not a huge band in any way, shape, or form. I mean, they literally were just like Rain and Blood was like the record that had just come out. So like, I
Wow,
mean,
that's
so like,
crazy to
yeah.
see them in that time frame.
So like, yeah, it was amazing. But it reminds me of that kind of vibe of like that, the first time that you get to see something or hear something for the very first time. And it kind of like, it made me realize that like, the why I love this kind of music. So if you could talk a little bit about that song, I'd love you to be able to do that too.
Oh yeah, the final battle is a personal favorite, I think, among all of us. It has so much going on in it. And, when Jason and I were talking about putting it together, I was like, okay, this is the final battle. So whatever happens here has to be chaotic. It has to be wild. It has to be fucking like punch you in the face, because it is the final battle. It's the battle between the hordes of angels that are taking Lucifer's side and God and his angels. And it has to be intense, and it has to spark a little bit of, speaking to what you were saying, that feeling.
Hmm.
That happened to me when I listened to Merciful Fate for the first time. I felt like I was listening to something that was slightly dangerous, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And, I think that is a lot of like, what people feel when they feel whatever that feeling is. Some people might feel, lifted up somewhere, but I like danger in my music, I think. And so, I wanted it to have that dark feeling like, oh shit, something big is about to happen, and you better fucking either join, get out of the way, or run and hide.
Yeah. Cool.
But, again, I just have to give it to both Jason and Brian. They're really talented. Just with a little bit of guidance, they just took it, and, they both just did an excellent job.
Cool. Very cool. So what I'm going to ask now is probably going to be a difficult question to be able to be answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Um,
So,
so with a record that is this well produced, this well done, and you can tell that it wasn't something that you went into a studio over a weekend and did, okay? Like it's
yes.
you uh why not look for an actual label to back you and support you? I mean, I do it DIY myself. I run my own label myself, but like, why in this day and age would you want to have to go through all those headaches yourself to be able to do this?
That's a very good question. We have definitely shopped around. It's just, I think the time frame is really challenging for labels to want to sign on any new bands. We're a brand new band, even though each of us, I should say Jason and Brian, they've been in ton of projects, and they've done a lot of stuff. We just, unfortunately, a lot of bands that are signed are based off of their social media, how much social media they have and how many people are following them. And, we're a new band, so we're just getting started. But we're open. We're definitely open. And I've shopped it, to a few a few labels, and some of them have gotten back to us and said, hey, unfortunately at this time, we're just not signing. Some got back and said, it'll take 3 or 4 months before we can even listen to your music. So we definitely are looking. We're open. But we have been working on this album for so long that I was like, I just want to get it out. I just want I want to share it. It's been, for me personally, about 15 years of thinking about putting this album together, and actively, with Jason and Brian, and writing the past couple of years. So we're definitely open. We're definitely looking. But, as far as wise, I was like, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. For production wise, and it's something that we did in house. So we did it here. And so, we're really, I guess, very lucky that we have the tools to be able to do that. But yeah, as far as why not put it on a label, it was probably me just being slightly impatient, because I'd been listening to it and working on it for so long. I'm like, oh my God, we've got to get it out.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's hysterically funny because the exact same thing happened to me.
Um,
I literally started my label, sent it out to about 15 or 20 people because over the years I've signed to God, 20 different labels with the 10 different projects I've done. And I sent it to all of them and just like, well, I'll eventually hear back. No lie. Like, so I literally did one of my doom metal bands, which is, Until the Sky Dies. And I literally put the record out, and 3 days later, two labels came back and offered deals. Like literally, and I was like, "Nope, sorry, it's already done. It's good. Maybe next time." So I understand the impatient side completely. I understand, like, well, I just want to get it out. I was working on it for a year and a half myself, and I was just like, okay, it's time to get it done. So I completely can feel you on that. Um, the other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit was so the Portland scene or the Northwest extreme metal scene is probably one of the most, I'm gonna say in the best way, fucked up and interesting places right now musically that there is. There is literally weird electronic metal bands, straight to old school. Like, I swear to God, I feel like I'm sending to Germany and sending to Europe and getting a tape trading demo. Um, and like, where it's probably been dubbed 6 times and it's so shitty that you literally can barely hear the music, but now you want to hear more.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask, like, what what is the scene like there right now? Like, is it still that kind of crazy, thriving, weird scene, or has it changed at all?
I think over the past year, I mean, it's definitely quieted down. I do still see, like Silver Talon putting stuff out, Ceremonial Castings. They re-released an album, 1869, and then I mean, I see a few bands still working out of here. I think it's just tough for everyone because, you know, playing live is where it's at for all of us. We really love that live performance, and we're not able to do that. But I think the way I'm choosing to look at this is it was a perfect time for anyone who is creative to be creative, because you have more time in your, I look at my home as my castle. This is my domain, and this is where I function the best because I can relax, I can turn everything off or whatever, run around naked, burn the house down, whatever. All right, maybe not burn the house down, but so I think it's a good time, for all of us. And I think that's what most, musicians are doing these days, and especially musicians out here. Like, I'm good friends with Jake Saperchi of Uwata, and it's just we're trying to keep our heads focused on being creative and being positive, because the world is a hard place to be in at the moment, so we just stay focused on writing and creating, and keep our heads up.
Cool. So as far as where the band is right now, or do you have more material you're working on right now? Or are you kind of holding off on it because the record just came out? I just was kind of wondering what the future kind of holds, for Empyrean Fire right now.
We definitely have more music. I think we have a couple of tracks, at least the foundation, the guitar work laid down for it. Aside from Empyrean Fire, both Jason is working on his Eternal Valley stuff. Brian has his projects, and I've started a couple of projects alongside of Empyrean Fire. So for Empyrean Fire itself, we definitely have new music. We would like to hold off, just because we just released this album, and we hope that it, has enough air to, at some point where we can play it live, because I feel like playing that out live is going to be pretty fucking fantastic. And I'm a very aesthetic kind of person, so I know this is going to sound retarded, but for many years I love magic, like whether magic tricks and stuff, and I have always wanted to do some kind of illusion on stage and not tell anybody that they're having an illusion, but just do it in the midst of, and I feel like with this album, it would be so easy to put something together so, you know, powerful, not only as a visual and audio, you know, audio experience, but just something pretty moving, you know?
Cool. No,
You're like,
awesome.
did you just see what that woman did? What the fuck was that?
Oh, that's phenomenal. So let's feed off of that a little bit. So what do you want a stage show to be like? Are you gonna just play the record the way it's played? Do you want to have it more theatrical? Do you want to have some kind of, the samples or some kind of storyline behind it? Like, what would be the perfect Empyrean Fire kind of show?
Well, you know, I would definitely love to have like a camcorder or a camera, something that with like a white screen that comes down, so we could put up visuals of Gustave Doré's drawings, because he illustrated the 2 poems and more. But, you know, I would like to show his illustrations, and they've got this really cool effect that you can do is you can take a still image and make it move really slow. And so I'd like to have that like on a big screen. I mean, if we're going to go all out, you know, there's going to be fire because we're Empyrean Fire and there has to be fire. So, you know, we'll have to probably have something on stage, which, you know, would probably be, I don't know, the options are endless.
Okay.
But I definitely know that, and I definitely would like it to be a little theatrical. I love King Diamond. I love Merciful Fate. I love Demure. I love those visuals, you know. I love the fire. So it would definitely be a moving experience, and you know, we would definitely have thought about like, okay, what's our show gonna look like when we get to it? What are we gonna wear? And I said, well, just please wear something, because I don't want you to show up in a sock.
Yeah.
They're like, we've got our black sock.
Yeah.
We're ready, Mistress Tricia.
Wow.
No, they're great guys. You know, they're definitely theatric and fire. And, you know, I think also primary color for Empyrean Fire. And I know people use a lot of, you know, they do a lot of fog and they do a lot of reds and greens. I'd like to do like a fire color, like an orangish red. And I feel like, you know, a lot of times bands that I've seen in the past, what has made an impact on me is every time I see them, they always have either like, we'll take Uwata for example, rather. They always, it's just black and white and fog. And every time I see them, I know that's what I'm going to get. That's their thing, you know? And so that's one of their things. But, you know, I feel like a good primary color would be like a reddish orange. So you probably see a lot of that coming around just to accentuate the fire.
Cool. Awesome. Ironically, that's another common theme we have, because every performance that I've ever done, the color purple is above me. So.
Oh, interesting. That's
So
cool.
yeah, so that's really interesting that you have that kind of philosophy too. I think a lot of us do that are more creative. Like, we have kind of an idea of what we want our persona to be and what's going on. So very cool. Well, I hope you get to do that soon. I don't think it's going to happen very soon, but I hope you get to do it soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to ask a little bit about Heavy Gloom Productions.
Mhm.
So is that going to be a label, or is that just going to be for your guys' projects? Like what is the end all be all for that?
With Heavy Gloom Productions. So that's Jason's label, and he's put out a few bands on it. And for this specific album, we've just put it on Heavy Gloom Productions. For the future, I'm not sure what he's got planned. I don't know. I think that I'm hoping that by the time we get another album out, that it will be on an actual label. I think that it just seemed like a good fit for us to put it out on Heavy Gloom, since he already, it's his deal. And
Cool. Awesome. So if I was to ask you, what your what has the most interesting or favorite review or discussion of the band that you've gotten so far, that's kind of, you didn't expect it, and you were really surprised by it. I know the record's really rather new, so I'm sure there's not a ton of stuff yet, but is there anything that you've kind of gotten written, or any way wise, that has really just kind of shocked you, that you weren't quite?
we have received several reviews, including yours, which was amazing, and we appreciate it, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think when I look back and I think about the question that you just asked and how I can apply that, every single review that I can recall has said it gives them chills. And I think that, not that one specific review would stick out, but that specific statement from each review is pretty amazing. And, that's why I love music. It gives me chills. It helps me feel better. It raises my spirit, and or it just makes me want to rip stuff up and run around the house. That's my favorite.
No, cool. That's awesome. So if you had the budget, you had the finances to make a proper visual experience for, I don't care, whatever song, if you want to do it for the whole album, this is not it's not about limiting yourself on what it is, but if you could make a visual presentation and put it on a DVD or put it on YouTube or whatever you want to do, what would you want the end result to look like for an Empyrean Fire release?
That's a very heavy question. I would choose, if I could, to probably do a video for the final battle, and put that. I feel like that song is so powerful. Creating a visual to put with it would be pretty impressive, and I think that the end result, it's a battle, so that it takes place in the, I say, in the mountains. It would just be a really interesting video, packed full of war and just strife and struggle, and the end result, I think, would be, because he says better, or the way I wrote the album, by the way, is each song could be either Lucifer thinking to himself and I'm singing his thoughts, or it could be his angelic hordes talking to Lucifer, or it could be God talking to Lucifer, or God and his thoughts. So depending on the song, depends on what's happening. But I think in the end, how they say, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So he says better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven, because he doesn't have a choice. He's right. It's done. What's done is done. And so, the end result would be, think, whatever your issue or whatever you're facing, regardless of that story that I wrote, that the idea is to think about what you want and really think about it, because sometimes you think you want something and then you get it and you're like, this is not what I asked for. This is not what I wanted.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. So I'm going to move into probably another heavy topic, because this is something that I just love to get feedback from other musicians. I have my mindset. I'm not going to throw my mindset at it. I just want to know what yours is. Okay. With the digital age, and it literally can be and I'm not going to be polite right now because it frustrates me a lot. Any asshole with a 4-track can make music and throw it up. And I'm going to be honest with you, 90% of the shit I hear sounds like it was done in an hour and thrown up there. Do you feel like that hurts the underground scene, or do you think that's helping it because it's helping bands like yourself be able to become an example of what we still can do today?
First of all, thank you. That's a huge compliment. So I really appreciate that. Second, oh, that's a good question. It is very frustrating because you're right. Everyone has a horn. Everyone has a 4-track. They can make music. And what sucks is, as people who are musicians and lovers of music, we have to sift through all that bullshit.
Right.
And there's a lot of it. You know, there's so much of it that it almost gets to a point to where you're like, I just don't even want to look through it, because I've listened to 5 bands and they all suck, or,
Yeah.
you know, the musicianship is poor, or I don't know. It's a catch-22, because I feel like sometimes we find a gem, you know, of a band that's like, okay, look, I don't have a lot of tools, but I worked with the tools that I have, and this is what I've got, and it's fucking awesome. Like Dark Throne, you know, when they're first, like, you know, it sounded like they fucking played it on a kid's piano, you know, little kid's piano.
Well, yeah.
You know, but they are also very fucking talented, and we wouldn't have, you know, maybe without our, you know, them putting that out, maybe they would have never gotten to where they are now, or we would have never found them. But it's hard. You're right. You know, it's a digital age. Everybody can do it. But I feel like it's a necessity in a sense, because we do find good music out of it. But man, it really sucks to sift through all that shit. And you're right. I have to agree with you. About 80% of what I find is not exciting. You know, it's just, it's tough. It's tough.
No,
It's a good question.
cool. No, and I agree with you, because I'm going to do the same thing with like Bathory. I mean, the reason why we got Bathory, I don't know if you've ever heard the story, was he was recording and some guy was mowing the lawn and it kept getting on the 4-track recorder that he was doing. So he literally had to create blast beats to be able to stop the lawnmower from being on the recording. So like, that's ingenuity at its greatest. Like,
It
you know,
is.
like, and I totally agree. And there are a lot of one-man projects that literally kick fucking ass. Like, they're
Yeah.
amazing because they take the time and they layer it and they do what they're doing and it's their thing. I totally agree. But then there's these, you know, full bands, like you go see them live and it sounds nothing like what they recorded, because like they're this great live band, but they don't give a shit about the product that they put out. And like, you know, like
You're like, what?
it's yeah, go ahead. Yeah, but yeah. So like, you know, I was like, that's just, I don't know. It's just, I just wish the world would take a little more time at the music. And like you said, that's kind of what I was hoping to hear, I think, in my ways too, is like, you know, be proud of what you do. If it takes 6 months or a year or 2 years to do it, do it. Like, that's really like, yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because many, like when we were putting the album together, you know, I was talking to my friend Jake, and he said, just take your time. Just take your time with it, because there's nothing worse than putting something out there that you're not proud of, or every time you listen to it, you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I should have taken a little more time to turn that down, or whatever. So I agree. Definitely take a little more time. It's hard, you know, it's hard, but you're right. People can push stuff out. You know, I hear a lot of hip hop. It's so interesting to me, because, you know, I hear a lot of hip hop artists. They're like, I made this in 2 days. And then it's got, you know, 50,000 views or 1 million views. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Scratch my head.
Yeah, if I lived that way, I'd stop making music. I couldn't do that. You know,
Yeah.
again, my perspective is I would rather have 100 people that love my music than 50,000 people listen to one song and then disappear, because that's kind of what happens. But Cool.
You would be a good salesman. You know why? Because you put your value in relationships and not just, I get it. I'm the same way. I would rather, it's just like these, I have a few good friends and I love them to death, and that's all that I need. I don't need, I'm pretty private. And so especially with people who are in my direct, environment. So I gotcha. I'm right there with you.
Awesome. So the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was so promotion and PR work and the I love when bands kind of talk about how unsimple this world is. Like everybody thinks, oh, I just record a record, I put it out there, and then everybody hears it. No one hears it unless you get it
Yep.
to them. So I found you through Zach because Zach and I worked with a PR company that I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to mention names, that was the most fucking abysmal piece of shit that I've ever worked with. To the point where when I sent an email to Zach about it, he literally said, "Brother, I get it." He goes, "You have had such a shit show from what's happening. Let me help you." And I said, "Dude, if you can help me, I am more than willing to pay for the services, but I am sick of working with this asshole." And that's literally the way it was. And
I gotcha.
he literally started sending me stuff that he was doing, like PR wise and stuff. And I'll be honest with you, 50% of it, I went back to him. I said, "This is fucking horrible. Like, I don't know why you're sending me this stuff." And then he sent me a couple of records, one being yours. And I was like, oh shit, dude, if you're working with stuff like this, yeah, I'm definitely going to do PR work with you. But I kind of wanted to ask you, like, how has that been going? Like, is it an uphill battle? Are you seeing results? Because I know personally, it's not a instant gratification kind of thing at all. So talk to me a little bit about how you feel the promotion's going. Do you feel like that's a value in today's day and age, or can you just throw stuff on social media and get the same kind of result?
Well, I have to say, Zach is amazing. He has been so helpful from day one. I will never forget this because I've been hosting one of Metalicious on Metal Devastation Radio for several years. And I reached out to him a long time ago and I'm like, "Hey, Zach, I'm working in a band. I've got a project. I just kind of want to give you a heads up." And excuse me, he was like, "Okay, cool. Just let me know when you guys have something ready." And I was like, "All right." Well, when I did send it to him finally, he told me, "Tricia," he said, "I'm going to be honest with you." He's like, "When I have friends who tell me they have a band that they're going to be making music," he's like, "I get really scared." He's like, "Because I don't know what they're going to give me." You know what I mean? And he's like, "But this is fucking awesome." And that made me feel really good because it's true. Every time you don't know what you don't know what's coming. So it was really cool to hear him say that, and definitely worth it. I mean, we have, I've done a couple of campaigns with Metal Devastation Radio's PR, and we've got so many reviews at this point that I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything, but that's great. The music is definitely getting out to people, so that is awesome too, and we're getting such a warm response. Like, so far, knock on wood, there's, everybody's said, for symphonic black metal, it's pretty fucking amazing. And, there really hasn't been a lot of new symphonic black metal out. So it's been really awesome. And it is an uphill battle, though. There's no lie about that. I mean, it's just hard to get it out there. And if you're doing it yourself on your own budget, it can be expensive, to get, put on Amazon and Spotify and any other, they've got so many music, whatever those things are called, sites that you can go to put your music up. It's just crazy. And I'm an old school kind of gal. I grew up in the tape trading days where, you had to buy well, you didn't have to, but I would buy the underground magazines, and I had pen pals, you know, that you'd write back and forth to, and somebody would record a tape, and then you'd record a tape for them. And that's how you found music, you know, other than going into the, you know, record store and looking it up and like, oh, that cover looks fucking awesome. I've never heard them, but I'm buying them because the cover's rad.
Right.
So I think that, you know, as far as, you know, PR and stuff go, it's pretty challenging, but I'm really grateful that I've had people like yourself and Zach who are very helpful and, you know, help getting, you know, get the word out and get the album out. So thank you so much.
Oh, no, you're very, very welcome. So I asked this question, and this is going to be one of the last questions I ask, but I asked this to everybody that I interview, and I get probably a unique, different response every single time.
Nice. But I love those kind of questions.
Yeah. So if you could have any one artist or band take your songs and make them their own, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Oh, wow. If I could take any band and give them our album and then they would make that their own.
Right.
I would have to say Emperor, because I think Emperor has such a, it's on actually everyone there, or that band. I feel like would definitely, well, okay, hold on. Wait 1 second. Do we want to make it completely different from what it already is?
Yeah, because so they're gonna make it their own. They're gonna take what you gave them and they're gonna make it. It'll be Emperors. It'll be X's band. Like they're gonna take your music and make it theirs.
Okay, so I think Emperor. Now my thought process has changed because I was like, I think I might want something completely different from what it already is. So Emperor would be one of the bands that I would just love to tour with if ever possible. But as far as a band to take Empyrean Fire's music and make it their own, I might, that's a very good question because I would want to see it in a completely different light. And I'll tell you why. And I know this is going to be retarded, crazy, but when I wrote this album, I sang out all the parts, even Jason and Brian's parts, and I sang it in jazz.
Okay.
I would love a jazz musician. I would love to sing it in all clean vocals.
Okay.
But I don't really know. Maybe, or maybe not jazz, but like a pop. Maybe I would have like Lana Del Rey.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but I think it would be kind of cool for her to take that music and go, how can I make it into because I think she would do a really good job of singing a jazzy, bluesy version of it.
That's what Lana Del Rey is. She's kind of like a loungy, jazzy, dark pop singer. So no, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was expecting because I get some of this craziest stuff. Like when you said jazz, though, the first thing I thought of, I don't know if you know who it is, but there's a musician called Sun Ra, and he's like a legendary. Yeah, he's like a legendary jazz. Like I could totally hear him interpreting, you know, like Empyrean Fire because like that free form kind of crazy jazz would fit really well with the chaos of what you do. So
nice.
Yeah,
I'll
nice.
have to look that up because I'm not familiar with him, but I'd like to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, he's like a 60s and 70s like free jazz musician, and it's amazing. So I think you would totally dig it. So I guess what I'm going to do, Tricia, is end it here with saying like this is going to be your step stool, your voice piece, your mouthpiece right now. Tell your folks how to be able to get your stuff, what's going on, what you're hoping for the future. Like it's your next couple of minutes. Enjoy and tell the world, as I laugh and joke, say the hundreds of people that are going to watch this, get your record sold to all of them.
Well, thank you. First of all, Clint, I want to say thank you to you for allowing me the opportunity to talk, and also, you know, for the time frames thing. So I appreciate you working with me on that. I just want to say first, thank you also to everyone who's already purchased and or downloaded our album Deliverance. Really appreciate it. We are on Bandcamp. We are on YouTube. We have a Facebook and an Instagram. So you can find us anywhere there, or you can look me up on Facebook, Tricia Lee Myers. Message me if you have any questions. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate every bit of feedback that we can get. And again, just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Go out, support your local musicians. We need it. And take care of yourself. You know, be safe. Be freaking safe. Wear your mask. Do your thing. Keep your family safe.
Absolutely. Well, again, Tricia, thank you so very much. This has been awesome. We totally appreciate it. I totally appreciate it. Obviously, we're not going to stop talking from here, but I mean, I will stay in touch. If you ever come to Phoenix, let me know. I will be the first one there hanging out, watching you guys, hanging out, talking about crazy jazz music, because that's all. Like that. But like I said, I'll put links to the Bandcamp and to your Facebook page and all that stuff as well too, so people can get that. I just want to say, thank you so very much and appreciate the time.
Thank you too. You have a great evening, Clint.
You too.
Bye-bye.